the Toronto Pop Festival 1969. This is my original Johnny Winter poster that I got at the festival, and I still have. It's been on many a wall since, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about it. It's not to be confused with the rock and roll revival that had John Lennon and Eric Clapton and the Doors. This was about 3 months before that. I think it was September. I had a chance to go to that too. I was living in Kingston, Ontario at the time, which was about 150 miles from Toronto. But I was researching this, the Toronto Pop Festival, and I came across this blog by this person. So I started reading it, and I started reading about 3 or 4 sentences in. I said, that's me, that's my writing. So well, way back in, I don't know, it must have been 15 years ago, I had a blog, and I talked about the Toronto Pop Festival, and I did this paragraph. So I'm going to read it because it sort of describes the festival, and I've added a few other things into it, and a few recollections by Steve, who I went with, a friend who I went to the festival with. So I'm going to read, because this guy had it on his blog with a bunch of some other people's stuff. So I might as well read it. The Toronto Pop Festival took place on June 21st and 22nd, 1969 in Varsity Stadium in Toronto, a few months before Woodstock. I took the bus to this event from Kingston, Ontario, where I grew up. I remember waiting in line wondering what was going to happen next. Anticipation for sure. Alice Cooper was on early in the day and was not listed on the poster because nobody knew who Alice Cooper was, and they filled in for the Bonzo Dog Band or somebody that couldn't make the festival that was on the posters. So they were introduced as a band from LA on Frank Zappa's label, and like I said, nobody had heard of them. That didn't last long. They came out in metallic outfits. You can see that on the first 2 albums. They have those kind of metallic-y outfits on. And changed the face of rock music forever. So from flying drumsticks to a little theater, well, quite a bit of theater, to what they called sci-fi rock. The drummer at one point was all around his drums, just banging anything in sight, the stage, anything. And it was a great show. It was like first thing in the morning, or the first thing around noontime, whatever time it started that day. It was like, oh jeez, you're getting hit in the face with the first time Alice Cooper had been. I think it was on he was on tour for one of the first 2 albums. So anyways, other highlights were Al Cooper. He had a whole band with them, and they had sheets in front of them and their horns and everything. He'd already left Blood, Sweat and Tears by that time, and the band was playing that afternoon, and they were like changing every 3 or 4 songs. They would change instruments. I think Lee Von Helm would go to mandolin, and Richard Manuel would go to drums, and I can remember it was quite exciting because I was really into the band at the time. Other bands Saturday included Eric Anderson, Rotary Connection, and that night we had Sly and the Family Stone, the Velvet Underground, and Johnny Winter. A lot of these bands, of course, never seen before, of course. It was 1969. And when Saturday's show ended, we were left out on the street. I was 18, and I think Steve was too, and we were both like, now what? We didn't have any, really hardly any money. We didn't have any place to go, so we were out on the street. So they announced that you could go to the Rock Pile, which was a venue at the time in Toronto, and sit on the floor, sleep on the floor, whatever. So we went there, and around 1 o'clock in the morning, a band came on, and Steve remembers what band it was. It was SRC, and they were full volume, and it was like, we watched music all day long, and it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and we left. It was just too much. And I think Steve ended up buying the SRC album later on that night when we went downtown, because we were on Yonge Street, and we went to Sam the Record Man, and I think right across the street was A&A Records. They were both huge record stores at the time. So Out onto the street we went, finding a late night movie showing at a theater on Yonge Street. And what was playing at that time was Monterey Pop Movie. Never seen that before. Fit right in. They probably were coordinated in with the pop festival. So we watched the movie, and then we just kind of wandered around the streets. I remember, I think we were down City Hall area, and we were just wandering the streets like all night until the next day started on Sunday. Sunday included Slim Harpo, Ronnie Hopkins and his band, Chuck Berry, Nucleus, and at night we had Blood, Sweat and Tears, Charlebois. Procol Harum was on during the day. That was a big thrill for me, and Tiny Tim too. And that night they also had Dr. John the Night Tripper in full like Louisiana outfits, you know, that New Orleans costumes with all those feathers and all that stuff, and it was like, wow, what is this? And it was crazy. It was a thing to remember for sure. The final act was Steppenwolf, and about halfway through I had to go catch a bus. And I remember running down the street because I didn't put it off to the last second, and I just made the bus home. So that was pretty well my experience at the Toronto Pop Festival, 1969, and it was a thrill at that age to just kind of be let loose. I mean, we were out on the street and no money, and never really happened again. Never went to another festival, unfortunately. Saw the bands, but never a full festival. So, so long.